Welcome to In Your Defense, Galveston and Beyond.
Hello and welcome to Defense on the Coast with Mark Diaz, a passionate criminal defense attorney with over 25 years of experience defending the rights of Texans. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and I'm excited to discuss all things criminal defense law today. Mark, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Could you share a bit about your background and journey and what kind of led you to become a criminal defense attorney and found Mark Diaz and Associates?
So, became licensed in 1998. I grew up in a household where my father owned a printing company and he and my mother both worked at the printing company. That is to say, I grew up with parents who were self-employed. So when you don't have a boss, you don't have to ask for permission to do things. Of course, I didn't realize it at the time, but that kind of made me unemployable. I don't know if that makes sense. A good example I like to give is when I was 16, one of my first jobs was at a grocery store, and I'd been there a long time, and I wanted a weekend off, and I asked my boss for a weekend, or my manager for that weekend off, and he told me no. So I was mad. I went home and asked my dad, hey, Pop, do I have to give him 2 weeks notice if I quit? Because that's what everybody says you have to do. And he looked at me and he said, are they going to give you 2 weeks notice if they fire you? I said, no. He said, then don't give them 2 weeks notice if you want to quit. So fast forward to graduating from law school, I never looked for a job. I did an internship with an attorney one time, but I never looked for a job. I never applied for jobs. I just came out of law school and opened an office. What I really like is being in the courtroom. So practicing criminal law lets me be in the courtroom pretty much every day. And that's what I like. My favorite part of doing what I do is being in the courtroom. So just out of coincidence, the first case I got hired on was a criminal case. I took it and I loved it, and I just never stopped after that.
Wow, that's impressive to come out of law school and just go right into forming your own business. I've known lawyers over the years. I don't think I've ever known anybody who did that.
I kind of grew up with that atmosphere, even though at the time I didn't realize it.
Sure. Can you talk about the importance of each role in the criminal justice system, such as the judge, the prosecutor, the defense attorney, while focusing primarily on the importance of what you do as a defense attorney?
So if you break it down, everything matters, right? For instance, I don't travel. I don't take cases out of my general area. And that is because I have learned that knowing the players matters. And it may not mean anything specific, but I can tell when this particular judge is not in a good mood. So today might not be the day to ask for something. You know what I mean? Same thing with the prosecutors.
Smart.
And what's even more than that is there are certain prosecutors I know I shouldn't probably deal with. So I'll let one of my other attorneys do it. In other words, we're all humans. And so if you don't know the players involved, it makes your job more difficult. We have, for instance, a particular judge that will not give probation on a felony DWI. He will not accept it. If you want to try and get it, you have to go to a jury and hope the jury will give it to you as punishment. I've seen more than one out-of-town lawyer come in here not knowing that and then think that it's something they're doing wrong. But it's not. It's just that particular court won't accept it. So it's knowing everyone involved is important. Another issue we have locally in misdemeanor courts is the judges give 3 choices every day for defendants. You can reset your case to hire a lawyer. You can ask for a court-appointed attorney if you qualify financially, meaning if you meet the indigency guidelines, or, and this is the one that I don't like, you can talk to the state yourself and see what they might offer you. And, for the people that elect that, they're told immediately, okay, I'm an attorney for the state of Texas. I do not represent you, but here's what I think, right? The problem is they don't give you the follow-up. Like, yeah, I know this was just a small theft from Walmart, so I'll offer you a small fine, no jail time, and you can go home. Well, what the prosecutors don't tell the defendants is a conviction for theft is a crime of moral turpitude, and you're not getting a job anywhere after that. With relation to that, again, that's why it's important to have an attorney representing you against the people trying to convict you.
That's really interesting because you hear about people trying to do things themselves, and it never really turns out well in this world of law. in the courtrooms and the justice system. Like trying to represent yourself is a whole other animal.
I have an even better story on that, and it happened a couple of weeks ago. A guy calls. In Texas, we have something called non-disclosure and something called expunction. Non-disclosure means you were convicted of a qualifying offense and you completed like a term of deferred adjudication. And so you can have that non-disclosed, which means employers doing a background check can't see it. Law enforcement will see it. So, and certain state agencies like teachers, nurses, but a regular employer is not going to see it in a background check. So a man called, he had gotten a non-disclosure. Then on his own, he thought, well, I think I'm entitled to an expunction. So he went and filed his own expunction case, which then basically had the effect of him creating a record of the case being out there in the world. He was calling to see how he could undo what he had done because it was obviously denied. He wasn't entitled. But now there's a permanent record with his name on it saying, hey, I was charged with XYZ. I want it off. I fixed it for him, but perfect example of why you don't want to try to navigate the law if you're not a lawyer.
Yeah, for sure. It's not, there's a reason that there's a ton of schooling and education involved, What do you think sets you apart as a litigator and advocate for your clients in the courtroom?
Let me break that down two ways. One of the things that sets me apart is I have a physical location. And I know that sounds funny, but I have an office, I have a building, I have a receptionist, I have an office manager, I have another girl who's in charge of all my discovery. I have 3 lawyers that work for me. So I have a physical presence and all my clients have my cell phone number. So I'm also accessible. I say that because you would be surprised to find out that there's a lot of attorneys that practice criminal defense, that their office is the trunk of their car. They show up to court, but then after court, you're not going to find them. They're not going to answer the phone. There's no office you can go to. I mean, these days, discovery is provided to us in criminal cases electronically on a cloud server. We have access to it. We have to log into a system to get it and look at it. So as you can imagine, there's body cams of officers, there's dash cams from patrol cars, just a lot. Well, I have a computer set up in my conference rooms specifically for my clients to come make an appointment. We log them in and let them look at all their discovery. So when I say what sets me apart, accessibility is one thing. Now, when you say in the courtroom, the answer is experience. And I've been trying criminal cases for over 25 years. I've tried capital murders. I've tried all kinds of dope cases. I mean, basically you name it, and I've probably tried that case. I also do federal cases. I don't like that the answer is experience, only because my son is in law school right now. And it's hard for me to think of things to tell young lawyers even when I hire them. I can't anticipate everything they're going to go through.
Sure.
So to fix that, I spend a lot of time in court with them so they can just learn by watching me, because it's not like I made a book along the way of, today I learned this. So today it's definitely experience. The amount of trials that I've tried in my career. When you are a young lawyer, you're worried about getting trial experience, right? Especially your first several trials. By the time you get where I am, like I've tried, it's natural to me. Let's go. Young prosecutors often, when they first start and they don't know me, they'll like tell me, hey, we're number 1 for Monday. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. Let's go. But I understand. I was there once.
Sure. So when you're hired to represent a criminal defendant, can you walk us through the first steps after that happens?
Without being case specific, sure. Today, again, everything is electronic. So typically someone comes in to hire me, they get a contract. I file into the case, meaning I can't have access to discovery. I can't make court appearances. I can't do anything until I become what they call attorney of record. So the first document we file is to file into the case saying, hey, I'm the attorney and I want access to discovery. And then we go from there, because depending upon the case, it might be important for me to know what the state's version of what they think the evidence is versus what my client thinks the evidence is. And then typically here, And again, some people don't hire an attorney till 2 days before their first court date. Some people hire me, if they get arrested on a weekend, they're in here on Monday. But typically when people hire me, they don't have court for several weeks, maybe even a month. And so I have that period of time to figure out some sort of strategy before we ever have our first court appearance.
How do you approach building trust with clients, since there's a lot of inherent distrust of the criminal justice system as a whole?
I've often said, just like anything I do, if I was going to hire an attorney, I would go visit at least 3. And when I say visit, I mean in their office.
Or the trunk of their car.
Well, you laugh about that, but I know attorneys who have met their clients at Jack in the Box.
Yeah.
To me, that wouldn't fit me, right?
Yeah.
Even people that call me, I tell them, go interview other people, because here's the deal. We may be in a situation that's going to impact the rest of your life, potentially, right? Because if it's just a criminal record, that could affect your life, right? If it's a felony, that could literally mean the penitentiary. And so you need to feel comfortable with the person you're dealing with.
Right.
I think for me, a big part of it is, like I said, I give my clients my cell phone number, and I only have one. I don't carry 2 cell phones. So I'm really accessible. Now, if you call me at 3 o'clock in the morning, you ain't getting me. But generally,
I do need to sleep.
Yeah, but generally speaking, I'm very accessible. Obviously, someone could be calling me right now. I can't answer because I'm with you, but I would call them back. And so my clients like that. I mean, you got to have access to your attorney is the way I feel.
Yeah, definitely. Do you feel like some people are more forthcoming with you depending on what the charge is?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, some people tell me everything. Some people tell me nothing. I think for the people that tell me nothing or tell me something that's inaccurate, I think it's because they think, ooh, maybe they didn't get that. Maybe it wasn't documented or, what have you. But yeah, there's no consistency. Obviously, I prefer when they're all up front with me and tell me everything up front. That way I don't ever get blindsided.
Right.
But it does happen.
Yeah. I suppose is your advice just tell your lawyer everything?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I can't just so I can't share it, right? It's covered under the attorney-client privilege. So it gives me the best position to try and defend against every position if I know everything.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, what's the benefit of lying to your attorney? You may as well be as honest as possible, so that person is armed with everything they need to defend you.
Right.
Yeah. What are some of the most pressing issues or challenges facing the criminal justice system today?
Well, it's gotten better, but sentencing has always been a problem to me in felony cases. I guess a good popular current example are the Menendez brothers, who are now gaining a lot of traction and may be resentenced. Most of the problem areas that I'm aware of have been in the indigent defense arena. We do not do court-appointed cases anymore. There was a time when we did, and my rule in my office was every client is treated the same. So when I look at my system, and when I say my system, we have electronic records, and if I'm in court and I need to see something, I can look on my phone or my iPad or whatever and quickly find something. There wouldn't be a distinction between who was appointed and who was retained, because I can't treat the clients any difference, right? But like I said, we don't do indigent defense anymore. Counties across the state of Texas are dealing with creating public defenders' offices, manage assigned counsel programs, all kinds of stuff addressing that. There was, for many years, a movement of certain attorneys allegedly taking too many cases in a year. And if you're taking that many cases, how can you provide effective representation and, whatnot? Again, I'm not in that arena today.
Sure.
But for me, and it's maybe because I've been doing it for so long, I think some punishments are too harsh.
Really? Is that specific to Texas, or do you see that kind of across the board?
Well, I don't practice outside of Texas, so I'm not sure. But look, I've told juries, well, I don't tell juries this all the time, but the problem is sometimes I'm trying a case against a young prosecutor who's standing there asking for, 20 years, right? But they say it like it's nothing. And so what I have asked courts and juries to do is when they're trying to consider a sentence like that, think about the changes that have happened in your life in 20 years. And that'll give you a better idea of how long 20 years is. I once had a client who had done a lot of time in the federal penitentiary, and he told me stories about when he got out. When he went in, there were no such thing as cell phones. When he came out, people are using, it was back when people had the Bluetooth earpieces.
Yeah, those were hot.
He didn't know what they were doing.
People were just talking to themselves in the street.
Right. And he thought they were trying to start an argument with him. He said his sister took him to a fancy restaurant downtown after he got out, and he went into the bathroom and there were no knobs on the, well, you know, you stick your hands under it, and what he said he couldn't figure it out. I didn't know what to do, so I just left. Little things like that.
Sure.
And that kind of goes back to when I say experience. Like, I hadn't thought about things like that.
Right.
But he brought it to my attention. He's like, yeah, people were telling me, text me, and I didn't know what they meant. I didn't know what a text was. So,
wow.
Yeah. And so when you think about time and somebody's asking for 20, 30 years of a person's life, I mean, that's a big deal to me.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it's easy for us to think that it's not that much when you're on the outside looking in, but realistically, when you really think about it, 20 years is a very long time. All right. Well, good stuff. Thank you for joining us on Defense on the Coast with Texas criminal defense attorney Mark Diaz. To connect with Mark, you can visit texascriminaljustice.com, and please like and subscribe our channel and review the video if you liked what we have given you here today. So Mark, thanks very much for being here, and I'm excited to talk to you again.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.